What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a new release horror film that came out earlier in the year. And I saw the poster for this movie and read a couple of reviews about it, but I hadn't seen a trailer. And the premise sounded incredibly interesting. I am a huge fan of stop motion animation. I think there's such a talent involved when it comes to creating stop motion animation. And to see a horror movie that's set with that premise, it was really interesting to me. And I feel like we don't get a ton of horror in the stop motion space. Sometimes stop motion can be used in horror films, but to have an entire movie centered around that, I was really excited to check it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Stop Motion. Stop Motion is directed by Robert Morgan. Ella Blake, a stop motion animator struggling to control her demons after the loss of her overbearing mother, embarks upon the creation of a film that becomes the battleground for her sanity. As Ella's mind starts to fracture, the characters in her project take on a life of their own. So, as I said, I was very excited to watch this movie. I saw a lot of people posting online about how, like, this is one for the sickos and people who love nasty effects. And I was like, oh, this sounds 100% like it's going to be up my alley. And unfortunately, it wasn't. I didn't hate this movie by any means, but I also don't think there's anything really that special about it. It feels like a really awesome idea putting stop motion animation at the forefront of your film, but at the same time, it just feels like the same thing I've seen 100 times in the horror genre without really doing anything new to kind of set it apart from 100 other films that I've already seen. And I'm going to talk about it in detail today. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Ella, who is a stop motion animator that is working at home with her mother, who is dealing with severe arthritis, so she's not able to move the animated figures the way that she needs to. And you can tell Ella has a lot of pressure on her to do the job the exact way that her mother is asking her to do. Well, shortly after, her mother falls incredibly ill and is sent to the hospital, and Ella feels the need to finish the project. She ends up leaving the place that she was living, moving into somewhere new, and she runs into this little girl in the new place that she's living, and the little girl starts singing in the hallways, and eventually they have this conversation together, and she lets her into the apartment and shows her what she's doing, and the little girl says, oh, that story's not all that interesting. There's nothing about this that's really unique. You should try this. And the little girl starts telling this story, and it immediately puts an idea in Ella's head. And the entire film is Ella is using this little girl's idea to come up with this stop motion animated film. And as she's coming up with this idea, weird things start happening surrounding the creation of the project. So like I said, I was incredibly disappointed in this movie, but I will say, for starters, the positives. The stop motion animation sequences in this are awesome. The attention to detail in the stop motion animation, in the creation of the figures, how slimy and gross that they look, the movement is incredible. Every time those sequences were on screen, I was completely and totally fixated to the screen. I just thought that there was so much attention to detail and love and care in the overall creation of these things. And stop motion is one of the hardest filmmaking formats to get into, because it's essentially move a figurine, move it, move it, move it. And it becomes very taxing to move it and take a shot, move it and take a shot, to create something that's 25, 30 minutes long or a full length feature. I can't imagine just the tediousness of getting that done. And I commend the filmmakers for doing that. I think the story and the way that the story pans out is really interesting, and you can really feel it coming through the eyes of a child. And I liked that about the creation of the new film that Ella is working on through the runtime of the movie. But that's about as far as my positives go. I feel like the biggest complaint I have with this movie is so many films, whether it be a haunted house movie or a possession movie or anything like that, you'll have a family move somewhere and somebody weird comes out of the shadows and starts talking to you and telling you things. They might be seemingly innocent at first, and then when the seemingly innocent person shows up, things start to get worse and worse, and the innocent person starts to turn menacing. And as soon as that little girl showed up, I was like, okay, I 100% know the direction that this movie is going to go in. And the lead character in this movie, she is very flat. There's not a lot about her personality other than she likes stop motion animation, and she feels like she's been living under her mother's shadow. She wants to get out of it, but has to try to work hard to create something to get out of it. And aside from that, she's not really the most likable likable character. So when she's going through this circumstance, I found it incredibly hard to root for her. And it's not necessarily that the actress gives a bad performance, because I thought she did totally fine. I thought she was really committed, and there were moments where there were truly horrifying things happening on screen that I think her reaction was really great. But I just had a hard time staying invested with what her character was doing because I just didn't find her all that interesting. A lot of the drama surrounding her friend group that is also working in the stop motion animation industry was really poorly written, and the performances in those moments felt really kind of hokey and like something you'd see on like the Sci-Fi Channel, or something that was really, really low budget, where you're just getting like whoever you can as actors and putting them in the movie. It just felt very inauthentic and like forced drama to try to add something into the story outside of just the creation of the stop motion animation movie. None of the extreme stuff really felt all that earned. It felt like, oh, I might be losing the audience attention, so let's just throw something in here to throw them back into the swing of the movie. And the entire third act, I felt like it was just incredibly rushed. The ending of the film is incredibly unsatisfying. I didn't really find it all that impactful, and I just kept asking myself, like, what could you have done if you would have just focused more on the story and spent the time being the creator, kind of isolated in this space and losing their mind, rather than incorporating all of these external elements that didn't really add any more emotional depth to the story. And I did like some of the practical effects towards the end. It got pretty gross, but I saw a lot of people out there saying this one's for the sickos, this one's for the people who like disgusting horror, and this isn't even like mildly gross. Like, can get anywhere near some of the really insane, brutal stuff that I've watched in my life. I was kind of like, this is really tame for the amount of people who are saying this was incredibly sick and disgusting. And that kind of let me down as well, thinking that this was going to be something truly that was going to shock me. But instead, it was something that left me incredibly underwhelmed. And it's disappointing because, as I said, I feel like there's a lot of love and care when it comes to the stop motion elements of the film. But outside of that, I just was really underwhelmed, and I probably would never watch this again. So, have you seen Stop Motion? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredibly underwhelming. I was really looking forward to watching it, and unfortunately, it did not live up to my expectations. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.